All right, let's talk about some analytics. I made a video about this a few weeks ago, and people seemed actually interested in it. So usually people, sometimes people hate my analytical videos, but that one did okay. So I feel like it warrants another one here as we're in the home stretch. Only 2 weeks left before we get to the playoffs. So it should be mentioned, I'm recording this video without having seen the Thursday night game between the Browns and Jets, so I don't think anything's going to really change there, but just, figured I should mention that. But yeah, going to go through a couple things, so let's just jump into it. First, receiving core in the bottom 15. So I did a video a while back on this, and in the past 12 years now, there has not been a single team to have a receiving core that graded in the bottom 15 via PFF make the Super Bowl. It has not happened. And these are the notable teams that currently have receiving cores in the bottom 15. Teams that are, still competing for a playoff spot at the very least, who are, here. The Jaguars are maybe the most notable one. They haven't been there all season, and I think that because of that, we're starting to see part of their free fall has been because of that. Broncos and Raiders, I don't know how confident we feel about them making the playoffs anyway, but hey, they have a chance, so I threw them on the list. The Colts are another interesting one because they do feel like a team that has a legitimate shot at the postseason, but they're currently, if they do make it, maybe someone's going to have to step it up. Maybe it's, Alec Pierce has a good, steps that up or something. I don't know. But for now, that's where they're at. Steelers and Browns, kind of has been this all season. They're both kind of reliant on one guy, right? The Browns with Cooper, the Steelers with Pickens. They kind of need more depth. And so I think that could kill both of those teams, even if they do make it. The Browns probably will. Steelers probably won't, I think. But Steelers, they have a chance. But even if they do, it could be a real issue. And I should mention, just because you're on this list doesn't mean you can't win a Super Bowl. Obviously, it's just this is where the trends typically go. Just because a trend typically goes somewhere doesn't mean it's going to go that way. It just means that it could go that way. Also, a notable team not on the list, so I still included it, mentioning it on the list, is the Chiefs are not in the bottom 15, although they are one spot away from being in the bottom 15. So they just cleared this list. A big part of that is Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce do a good enough job just kind of escaping that trap, but they're too close for comfort right now, and that could be what kills them as well. Also, quarterbacks, got to mention them as well. So there has been one quarterback in that time frame that has gone on to make the Super Bowl. It was Peyton Manning, who was in the bottom 15 that year, but he was also Peyton Manning. So that's the only exception. A couple of asterisks on this list as well. First, the Saints. Derek Carr has not been a top 17 quarterback, so that's, that could sink them. The Texans are on the list, but the obvious asterisk is Stroud has been hurt. In fact, Stroud had been I believe a top 7, top 8-ish quarterback. Last time I did this list, I believe he was 8th, but that was because Kirk Cousins was one spot ahead of him. So, that's all worth noting. The Raiders, Steelers, and Colts all make this list as well, and Browns all make both of these lists. So it's part of why it's a little bit hard to fully buy into some of these teams, even if they do a lot else well, because they really have the odds stacked against them. Again, there's only been one instance of a team having either a bottom 15 quarterback or receiving core in the past 12 years make the Super Bowl. Now we're asking for one of these teams to create 2 more instances, essentially, by themselves. It seems unlikely. I also put the Vikings on the list with an asterisk, which is they actually are not in the bottom 15, but that's because Kirk Cousins, what he did his first 8 weeks was enough to still keep them out of the bottom 15, but they essentially are a bottom 15 in that scenario. So the odds are against them to go on a deep run, as they are with all of these teams, with the exception of, I think, the Texans, assuming Stroud is healthy. Next up, so it's teams that are top 7 in 3 statistical categories: receiving, quarterback, and coverage. If you are top 7 in all 3 of these categories, usually you end up going to the Super Bowl or losing to another team that's top 7 in all 3 of these categories. There have been exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. I believe the Chargers one year were top 7 in all of these and missed the playoffs altogether. But usually your odds are incredibly high to make this. It's more likely that you make the Super Bowl than miss the Super Bowl at that point. It's that high if you are, top 7 in all of those categories. If you're, 2 out of 3, you still have a good chance of making the Super Bowl, and you pretty much have to be top 7 in one of these categories to make the Super Bowl. Again, since I compiled this data, there has not been a team that wasn't top 7 in any of these categories and still made the Super Bowl. So let's see where current teams rank in this area. For the teams that have one, which is just enough for what they need, the Jets and Saints, both with their defense, are in there. So there's that. The Rams with quarterback play, that was good enough to get them one. The Eagles, also quarterback play. Their receiving core has not been good enough. Obviously, their coverage hasn't been good enough, but quarterback play has been. Seattle with receiving core, and then the Texans also with receiving core. You could also throw an asterisk on the Texans, as, Stroud was a fringe top 7 quarterback when he went down with his injury. So maybe, if he was playing the whole year, he might be up to 2, but he didn't. So they are currently just in the 1 category. But again, that's how it is on paper. If he's back, their odds go up. So now with the teams that are 2, usually these are teams that you look at as real contenders as long as they aren't in the bottom 15 in receiving or quarterback play, which one of them is, kind of, but we'll talk about that. The Cowboys are here. The Cowboys, last time I did this, were in all 3, but since then their coverage has dipped a little bit. It's fallen out of the top 3, but receiving and quarterback play still in the top 7 for that. The Lions are here. Obviously their coverage has not been good enough, but the quarterback play and receiving play has been. And the Lions, it is worth the Ravens, it is worth mentioning, there's actually going to be, if you're counting along at home, the math would be a little off. There was a tie between the Ravens quarterback and another quarterback, which we'll get to in a second, who tied for 7th. So they both make it barely, but yeah. But also that was through passing, so I would have probably stepped in and at least put an asterisk on it and gotten Lamar in the top 7, because I'm just using passing, but obviously his rushing is such a big part of his game that he's top 7. So Ravens, it's, their receiving core hasn't been top 7, but it's still been good enough, and coverage and Lamar have been amazing this season. The Bills, for them, it's actually receiving core that hasn't been good enough. Their coverage has still been good, even with their injuries. It's actually been playing even better this past month or so, weirdly enough. So they found something, and Josh Allen's been amazing. The receiving core has been good enough, and then the Vikings' coverage and receiving core has been very good this season, and that's with Jefferson being banged up. But obviously, the quarterback play has not been good enough this season, and it makes you wonder, man, if Kirk Cousins was healthy, what could this team really have done this season? Maybe we'll find out next year. 2 teams are top 7 in both categories, which is rare. Usually you get 1 or 0, and while there's still 2 games, maybe one could, drop in some area, which, as I mentioned, 49ers, Brock Purdy is tied for 7th, so definitely he's hanging on by a thread there, but if he puts together a good couple weeks, he could get to top 7. And then the Dolphins also top 7. What this tells you is these 2 teams have a great chance to make the Super Bowl. Now, like I said, doesn't always work out. There's definitely still other teams that are big threats, but I also did my EPA per play power rankings video. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It should be on this channel, uploaded the same day I upload this video. And Miami did very well in that as well. So a lot of data points to Miami being pretty good. Now they play Baltimore, and again, whoever wins that game probably gets the 1 seed. That might be what it comes down to. But yeah, these are 2 teams that you got to respect at this point. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.